Welcome to Cycle World, welcome to beautiful Italy, welcome to the equally beautiful Multistrada V4 S, brand new for 2025. Now the guys at Cycle World have invited me to ride the new Multistrada because, believe it or not, I was one of the first to ride the original Multistrada all the way back in 2003, when it was like a air-cooled supermoto, we aren't too sure what it is bike. All those years later, we're here in 2025 to ride the new Multistrada V4 S. It's kind of shocking to think that back then on that old air-cooled V-twin, we're now at 170 horsepower. That power has not changed for 2025, it's just revised fueling, slightly different exhaust, so it's all Euro 5 compliant. In terms of styling, there's some slight changes, it's still got that desirability, still got that real high-end finish, but it's all about the kind of electronics and tweaking and just making improvements and learning from other Ducati models. So for example, when I rode the Ducati Diavol on its world launch, it had the rear deactivation system, so you didn't have the back two cylinders running below 4,000 RPM. That improves fuel economy and it reduces the heat when you're stationary. That's what's happened to the 2025 Multistrada. On the rally version, if I remember rightly, it has the automatic lowering system. So as you ride along, you come below 20 kilometers an hour, it takes off the preload, lowers the rear shock so you can get 2 feet on the ground. Now that rear shock lowering depends on if you've got a pillion and luggage and how big you are. If you're a light rider like me, well, relatively light, the shock lowers around 15 mil. If you've got a pillion and you've got loads of luggage, it's going to lower more because you've got more weight to push the preload down. Really makes a difference. For a short rider like me, I can get 2 feet securely on the ground. Rear shock is completely new. The pivot has gone up just a little bit, I think it's 1 mil, but that makes a difference because it gives you more leverage, so the bike has got less tendency to sit, less tendency to squat. That's the theory. We've got a new wet mode that we never had before. We've got revised electronics, revised traction control, a plethora of riding aids, obviously cornering ABS, but now we've got a new braking system. So if I apply the front brake, it does the back brake, and in some of the modes, if I apply the back brake, it does the front brake. It's all kind of just tweaking an already excellent bike. Like nobody got off a Multistrada and went, I could do with some more power, and that's why they've left it as it is. But I think a few people got off it and said, I want a little bit more comfort, I want a little bit more finesse. And they've kind of done that. We've been riding on roads here that can only be described as kind of a motocross track. It looks like somebody's kind of paved a playground. It's just unbelievably bumpy, and there's off camber, there's grass coming through the road, there's big potholes. Yet when you're in touring mode, it's just really, really controlled. It's got a really interesting system that the front end is now talking to the back end. So if the front end goes over a bump, it communicates to the rear end before the rear end has hit the bump and kind of predetermines what is about to happen. So the front end is talking to the back end. It makes obvious and simplistic sense, and it's kind of like, why didn't they just do that previously? But now they've done it, you can kind of feel it, especially in town. When you go over like a speed hump, the front goes over and then the back seems to know what's about to happen. But the ride quality is really impressive. There's a definite gap between sports mode and touring mode. I think it was a bit closer before, but now there's a definite gap. Touring mode is a little bit easier, a little bit softer, a bit more palatious. It's very comfortable, it's very manageable, and it's very comfortable. The braking, I think it's down to a personal preference. If you're in touring mode and you're taking it steady because you're touring, when you apply the back brake, it applies the front brake. So you can almost forget about braking with a front brake lever conventionally, just rely on the back brake, and that's why Ducati fitted a bigger disc and a different pump and a different back brake. So you can just kind of be lazy, but if you start to ride a little bit more aggressive, then when the back ABS kicks in, it kicks in the front ABS, so then you want to flick into sports mode. When you flick into sports mode, now the front does the back, but the back doesn't do the front. So again, the braking changes depending on what you want to do. For example, in enduro mode, you have front ABS, but you have nothing on the back, so you can lock the back and have some fun. In the new wet mode, we did give it a go. It reduces the power and obviously puts all the rider aids through the roof. Really fun to come out of a first and second gear corner in slippery conditions and just use the throttle like a switch, see the traction light come on, everything's controlled, everything's behaved. We also got the opportunity to try the radar on the motorway, which is something we've done before. It's basically adaptive cruise control. It just allows you to keep the space between the vehicle or motorcycles in front. Really useful, pretty simple, pretty easy to use. we've also got something really interesting called the forward collision warning. Now, I tried to activate the forward collision warning, which is basically a big illumination on the dash, by trying to ram into other American journalists. But if you're using the brake, it doesn't really come up because it's there to give you the warning that you're not applying the brake and you're about to hit something. So if you want to see that come up on the dash, you've actually got to ride up to your mate pretty quick without touching the brakes. The warning flicks on the dash, then you apply the brakes. It's just another safety aspect that says, hey guys, you're riding a bit too close to your buddy, you've not hit the brake yet, how about you give it some? As I say, we've had the opportunity to ride it all day and try all these little tweaks and little improvements that Ducati have made. They've not made a massive step, it's just improving an already excellent bike. So off-road, we only got kind of a bit of a flavour of what to expect, maybe 10 to 15 kilometres off-road. To be honest, I should have adjusted the bars and got those a little bit higher because they're adjustable. And I should have played around with the suspension settings because I felt it was a little bit soft and it kind of pushes the front a little bit. It understeers a little bit. But then there is an argument of who's going to take a big exotic Ducati really hard off-road. I think people who are dedicated big adventure bike riders are probably going to go to a different manufacturer. I think the Multistrada is appealing to guys who are coming down from sports bikes who want loads of power, but they want comfort and they want to do distance. In terms of accessories, it's just a question of how many boxes you want to tick. Do you want a centre stand? Do you want panniers? Do you want heated grips? Do you want heated seat? How far do you want to go? Make the Multistrada your bike, essentially. We've got lighter wheels, we've got spoked wheels, we've got different tyres, we've got different size luggage, we've got centre stands, and now the heated grips go from 0 to 5 and so does the seat, where I think before it only went from 0 to 3. To be honest, I didn't think Ducati needed to do much with the Multistrada, but they've actually gone a little bit further than I expected. When I was sat in the presentation, I thought this was going to be one of the shortest presentations of the year and just kind of sat back with my cocktail waiting to not do a lot. And then it was like, oh, this is new and that's new, and then you got the lowering shock and you got the anti-collision, then you got the radar, then you got this, then you got that. So there is quite a lot when you look at the bike and see how much is added up. I guess the big question is when the guys at Cycle World get it back in the US. It'd be interesting to see, like, for example, if Justin takes this off-road and really smashes it through the dunes like he can do. It'd be interesting to see when we put it against the competition and see how it fares against the new GS, and there's obviously a possible KTM around the corner. But in terms of a first impression here in Italy, riding the new Multistrada V4 S, it's still got all the excellent qualities of the Multistrada. It's still quick, it's still fun, it's still excitable, but it's a little bit more comfortable, it's a little bit more refined than it ever was before.